I built a 50-meter-high fortress right inside the school, and then I swapped out all the students' uniforms for prison jumpsuits. Next, I custom-ordered over a dozen luxury prison buses for the kids. And finally, I laid down the absolute school rules. Teachers and students are strictly forbidden from calling each other by their real names. Everyone has to use their assigned ID numbers to address one another. Even the teachers weren't spared from this rule. You see, after I was reincarnated, my system actually mistook the school for a prison. Because of that, I ended up awakening the prison warden system. As long as I complete the corresponding prison renovation tasks, I can score massive rewards from the system. Right now, it's the start of the new school year, and a live educational reality show is broadcasting nationwide. The production team handpicked 3 completely different schools. First, there's Hengai High School, famously known as the ultimate point-scoring machine. Then there's Moen High School, which believes in teaching morals before academics. And finally, my school, Laofeng High School, but while the other principals were giving their passionate, heartfelt opening speeches, the vibe at my school was completely bizarre. The entire staff and student body were standing there in matching prison jumpsuits. And as the principal, I stood at the podium with a deadly serious expression, barking out my orders. Today is your first day on the inside. I need you to get 3 things absolutely clear in your heads. How did you get in here? What exactly is this place? And what exactly are you here to do? Seeing this crazy scene, the live chat absolutely exploded. What on earth is wrong with this school? The principal's opening speech sounds like a prison intake briefing. And why is everyone wearing prison jumpsuits? Is this a school or a maximum security prison? The very next second, I ripped off my outer jacket, revealing that I was wearing the exact same prison uniform as the students. Here on my turf, there is no difference in status or identity. Every single teacher and student is completely equal. And I am no exception. From this moment on, I will be eating, sleeping, and living right alongside you. You may call me number 0. I am your leader. Meanwhile, back in the show's live studio, Professor Wang Chengfang watched the chaos at Laofeng High School. He immediately jumped in with his take. If you ask me, this newly appointed Principal Guan is clearly an amateur. Equality between teachers and students sounds nice on paper. But if the teachers don't have absolute authority, how on earth are they supposed to control kids at this age? Teachers must exert enough pressure and dominance to actually lead students to good grades. It's truly a shame for those poor kids out in the county. But at that exact moment, over at Hengai High School, every single student was gripping a textbook. Their uniforms were immaculately neat and identical. Almost all of them wore glasses, and their hairstyles looked like they were punched out of the exact same factory mold. Even right in the middle of the principal's speech, the students were using the morning light to memorize vocabulary words. Professor Wang Chengfang confidently added, "Now, this is exactly the difference between these schools. Principal Cheng over at Hengai High School is an old friend of mine. I even helped design their entire educational model. And quite frankly, his system is absolutely the best fit for the vast majority of students out there." Hengai High School boasts a massive 94% admission rate to top-tier universities. That right there is all the proof you need. The moment he said that, the live chat instantly split into 2 warring factions. Some people totally agreed, saying Professor Wang was spot on. Only an intensely strict, extreme educational model can push these kids into top-tier colleges. But others furiously fired back. This kind of system is just way too cruel for the students. Just watching them makes me feel like I can't even breathe. Amidst the heated, mixed reactions, you could feel the absolute frustration and helplessness toward the current system. As the host kept commentating, the live feed quickly cut over to Moen High School. The students lined up on the sports field looked like a vibrant, colorful mess. Forget about matching uniforms. You could barely even find a single kid with naturally black hair. When anyone asked them why, they'd either claim they were so malnourished their hair naturally turned blonde, or that they had albinism and just couldn't afford hair dye. But by sticking to their philosophy of teaching morals before academics, they genuinely managed to reform quite a few troubled kids. The results were definitely more striking than the previous principals, and the stark contrast between the 3 schools on screen instantly set the live chat on fire. Stuff like, teach 'em how to be human first, then teach 'em the books. To put it bluntly, it's just making sure the problem kids don't cause trouble. Graduating from a school like that, they'll hit community college at best. And of course, there were the trolls loving the drama. Just imagine, you get reincarnated, ready to take over the world, only to wake up on the floor of the girls' bathroom. Talk about a brutally cursed start. You don't even know who your real dad is. But others chimed in, saying that the grades at Demon Pill High might leave a lot to be desired, sure, but the pressure is a whole lot lower compared to Hang High High. Though, yeah, they might just end up in juvie. Soon enough, all three schools wrapped up their opening speeches, and the moment I stepped off the stage, a system notification popped up. Ding! System recognition successful. Incarceration and discipline complete. Rewarding prison renovation funds, 300,000. But before I even had a second to plan my next move, I had to play along with the production crew for the upcoming student interviews. Over at Hang High High, Principal Cheng marched the camera crew straight over to a hand-picked student representative. Looking right into the lens, the kid spoke with perfect flow. Getting into Hang High High is, without a doubt, the greatest opportunity of my life. I truly believe that under Principal Cheng's guidance, we will carry on the legendary legacy of our seniors. As long as we follow Principal Cheng's orders, the next one getting into a top-tier university will be me. Back in the studio, Professor Wang Chengfang didn't even try to hide his praise. It seems the Hang High model is yielding immediate results. The opening speech barely ended, and it's already working wonders. Right beside him, the special guest, former top scholar Hao Shuyang, quickly chimed in. Oh, absolutely. Looking at him is like looking at my younger self. Meanwhile, Professor Liu, sitting right in the center of the studio, hadn't said a single word. He just maintained a super awkward smile. The live chat, on the other hand, was completely unamused. Man, this is so incredibly fake. 2 out of the 3 guests on the show have a vested interest in Hang High High. There is zero objectivity here. Weren't these supposed to be random interviews? That kid clearly memorized a script. Meanwhile, over at Demon Pill High, the student interviews were shaping up to be an absolute train wreck. The lines of students had completely broken apart. Some kids even whipped out their phones to play games in plain sight. The camera crew paced back and forth through the crowd, but seriously, not a single kid wanted to be interviewed. Out of options, the crew director turned to me. Principal Guan, do you happen to have any students prepped to speak? I answered him calmly, nope, just pick whoever you want. I actually want to hear their genuine thoughts anyway. The director looked totally stressed. You do realize this is a live broadcast, right? If we pick at random and a kid says the wrong thing, it's going to completely ruin your school's reputation. I just gave a helpless little laugh. That's exactly what makes it real. My only job is to be responsible for the students. There's no point chasing after vain titles in education. Saying that, I handed him a roster. There wasn't a single name on it, just a massive, dense block of ID numbers. The director gave up arguing and randomly picked out a lucky winner. Where is student number 4399? Almost instantly, a young girl stepped forward. Even though she was wearing the same prison-style school uniform, one look at the holes in her shoes made it obvious that her family was struggling financially, and the poor girl had clearly never been in a situation like this before. Facing the heavy cameras, she looked absolutely terrified, but she still gathered her courage and introduced herself. Hello, everyone, my name is Li Ao. I'm number 4399. I just transferred here for my senior year. I remember this girl. She used to go to school in a town 20 kilometers away. But as the older teachers retired, the new ones were basically poached by elite high schools like Hengai. And the high school in her town was shut down 10 years ago. During her freshman and sophomore years, she had to board alone at a school 100 kilometers away. It wasn't until this year, when they heard Laofeng High School was opening, that her family had her transfer back to the county. Then, the reporter asked her, number 4399. We want to know, do you resent this prison-like school environment? Especially since everyone only calls each other by numbers? The interviewer was clearly baiting her to say something negative, but number 4399 just waved her hand and shot back, not at all. I honestly just came here because the tuition was free. I wasn't expecting much, but looking at it now, under Principal Guan's leadership, I think I can actually become a better version of myself here. She chose her words carefully, making sure her thoughts were clear. It's supposed to be tough. What high school isn't? The college entrance exam definitely isn't the only way out in life, but right now, it's the absolute best path I have. These uniforms and this environment might look harsh, but to us, it's really nothing. The school covers every single expense here. Because of that, there's not a single kid here who doesn't want to work hard and succeed. To even have an opportunity like this now, I am so incredibly grateful. Hearing her speak, the crowd of students watching from behind all looked at her with deep agreement. The viewers in the live stream felt it too. Now this is real. They definitely picked her at random. I thought this school was just doing it for the views, but tuition, room, and board are completely free. That completely changes things. Back in the studio, however, Professor Wang Chengfang spoke up again. Principal Guan is pulling all these stunts. Not only is it costing a fortune, isn't it all just a massive waste of time? I sincerely hope this amateur principal isn't ruining these kids' futures. This whole maverick approach of his is probably just an act. I also hope that after this show airs, this Principal Guan, who is a textbook example of what not to do, faces severe punishment from the Board of Education. Her tone made it brutally clear. She wanted to report Laofeng High School and have it shut down completely. Her comments instantly triggered an explosion of angry comments in the chat. Has Professor Wang ever even been to a small county? Does she have any idea how hard it is for kids there to get an education? Judging them before classes even start. Oh, so you're the almighty know-it-all now? So if it's not the Hengai model, it's just an act? Seeing the massive wave of backlash flooding the screen, Professor Wang's face hardened slightly. But right then, Professor Lu, who had been completely silent, finally spoke up. Professor Wang, you claim this is all just a show. Well then, why don't you pay out of your own pocket and put on a show like this? I seem to recall that the previous decision from the higher-ups to cut funding subsidies for county high schools, driving all the top teachers into elite, Hengai-style schools, was your idea, wasn't it? You were the very person who caused this crisis in the first place. What right do you have to criticize Principal Guan? It's exactly because of those budget cuts that Principal Guan had to fund this school with his own money. Professor Wang wasn't fazed in the slightest. It was my proposal, yes. But hasn't the outcome been fantastic? Let's let the data speak for itself. All those students from the counties, haven't their test scores improved dramatically? Aren't they receiving a much better education now? The facts clearly prove that the Hengai model is the absolute best approach for the vast majority of students. Or do you genuinely believe, Professor Lu, that Principal Guan's little circus act is somehow going to yield better results? We are both esteemed academics working in higher education, after all. The argument wasn't just a simple emotional outburst. Professor Lu pulled a stack of documents from his backpack. Professor Wang, you want data? I'll give you data. For teenagers subjected to prolonged high pressure, once puberty ends, the volume of their hippocampus shrinks by an average of 6 to 8%, directly affecting memory retrieval efficiency. For students studying over 60 hours a week, their academic potential tests during their undergraduate studies are generally lower compared to other students, with the worst cases showing a gap of up to 37%. A follow-up study on Henghai High School graduates reveals that 55% of the students suffer from psychological issues, myopia, and other college entrance exam syndromes. Among them, 62% will develop lifelong chronic conditions from this impact. As for some of the tragic incidents that have occurred at Henghai High School, I won't go into detail. I don't know if Principal Guan's methods are any better, but the Henghai model is absolutely not the best educational approach. These words left Professor Wang Chengfang speechless for a moment. Obviously, she wasn't completely ignorant of these facts. Many comments in the live chat strongly agreed with him. Educated people arguing just hits different. They back up everything with hard data. That rebuttal was incredibly sharp and spot on. Professor Lu is totally right. Who knows how many students this Professor Wang has ruined? And she still has the nerve to trash Principal Guan. However, while the debate raged on in the studio, I had already started preparing my next move. The system's next task was to upgrade the school's security, preventing any student riots or breakouts. Completing it would reward me with 2 million in funding. Thinking of this, I immediately whipped out my phone. Then, I ordered 4 large prison buses online. My current funds just barely covered the cost. The doors of these buses could only be opened from the outside, and the windows were completely sealed shut with iron mesh. A single bus could carry 60 students and 2 teachers, exactly the size of one full class. At the same time, I hired 8 professional drivers online who had experience handling specialized vehicles. Offering a massive salary of $12,000 a month, the drivers eagerly replied that they could be on site in 10 minutes. Just then, the warning bell at Hanghai High School rang. Every single student instantly tensed up like they were facing a deadly enemy. Their nerves snapped taut. Over 3,000 students sprinted off like their lives depended on it. Very quickly, the only ones left on the sports field were the teachers, strolling along at a leisurely pace. Scenes like this played out every single day at Hanghai High School, and the students were already completely numb to it. The camera crew chased desperately after the students, panting heavily. They finally managed to stop a sophomore to ask for his thoughts. Gasping for air, the student replied, "Since we're here, we obviously have to keep up with the study schedule." After throwing out those few words, he dashed right back to his classroom. Back in the studio, the host had already smoothed over the earlier awkward tension. Professor Wang Chengfeng had also recovered from the embarrassment of being completely shut down. She tried to take control of the narrative once again. This right here shows the students' intense craving for knowledge under the Hanghai model. It trains the students to save every single second, dedicating it entirely to their studies. Plus, sprinting up the stairs gives them a chance to build up their physical stamina. It's a perfect balance of work and exercise. But the hard data Professor Liu had just revealed had already changed the minds of countless viewers. The live chat was now flooded with angry questions. How many words can you even read in those few minutes? Is this really necessary? Running up the stairs in pure chaos like that? What if a stampede happens? Do the teachers not give a damn about the students' safety at all? The kids are dead tired. How are they supposed to focus on studying? And why the hell do the students have to run, while the teachers just stroll around? Compared to Laofang High School's belief that everyone is equal, this doesn't even compare. Professor Liu clearly couldn't stand listening to her nonsense anymore. He was about to speak up, but the host quickly cut him off. Professor Wang makes a very solid point. Now, let's turn our attention to the morning reading sessions at the other two schools, shall we? The scene shifts to Moen High School. The campus literally feels like a battle royale. The teachers are everywhere, hunting down the students in their classes. Sure enough, in a quiet corner of the campus, the school dean catches two freshmen hiding and playing on their phones. Realizing they're busted, the kids immediately make a run for it. The dean instantly speeds up to chase them. How could these kids, who just started 10th grade, possibly outrun a dean who's a military veteran? They are quickly dragged off to the discipline office to await their punishment. Seeing this, Professor Wang Chengfeng nods in approval. Only with this kind of mandatory discipline can we guide problem students back onto the right path step by step. Meanwhile, over at Laofang High School, 4 school buses and their drivers are already in position. Before the students head out, I announce the school rules once again. Starting today, any student in this school, no matter where you need to go on campus, must take one of these 4 school buses right behind me. They will cover the cafeteria, the sports field, the dorms, and the classroom areas. Running on a strict schedule, they'll operate continuously until curfew every night, with at least one bus waiting at every stop. Now, will all classes please line up and board the buses in an orderly fashion? I pause for a moment, then continue. Even though many of Laofang High School's buildings are old and run down, the campus itself is massive. The distance between the academic buildings and the dorms is almost 1 kilometer. Dedicating all your time to studying, I actually agree with that idea. But we can't achieve it by exploiting our students. Instead, the school needs to provide them with basic conveniences. If we push students so hard that they don't even have time to use the bathroom, then this place is worse than a prison. And it definitely can't be called education. With these convenient school buses, students won't have to waste their time walking. Seeing this unfold, the online viewers go absolutely wild again. How are these school buses? They totally look like prison vans. Principal Guan is really going all out. Just buying these vehicles must have cost a fortune. It really is a prison-style school. This is just too hilarious. Meanwhile, the students sitting inside the buses are all whispering to each other. To be honest, my hometown doesn't even have public transit. I really didn't expect Principal Guan to care about us this much, even setting up school buses for us. Back in the studio, Professor Wang Chengfeng clearly can't stand it anymore. She sharply criticizes him. Spending money on something like this? Isn't Principal Guan squandering the school's funds way too much? This is just pure grandstanding. This is a school. What's the point of putting on such a huge show? An amateur is just an amateur. Maybe because she was previously roasted by Professor Liu. Her critique of me this time is especially harsh. But Professor Liu immediately interrupts her. I actually think that adding this kind of equipment proves exactly that Principal Guan pays close attention to his students' reasonable needs. Many schools spend a fortune building indoor stadiums and swimming pools. We all went to high school. Ask yourselves honestly, how many times did you ever actually step foot in those places? They're basically closed all year round. That is true grandstanding just to kiss up to the higher-ups. As far as I know, Hengai High School is exactly like that. At least what Principal Guan is doing here is genuinely useful for the students. These words instantly win unanimous agreement from the live chat. They spend all that useless money, and the students don't even get to use it once. But school buses are something they can use every single day. This Professor Wang just loves hating on everything. Zero objectivity. Since Professor Wang is such an expert at nitpicking, I'll treat you to a fish dinner sometime, so you can pick out all the bones for me. Inside the studio, the two professors continue to bicker, even dragging the neighboring Hengai High Schools former top college entrance exam scorer, Du Suyang, into the mess. Professor Liu asks, "Student Hao, you only graduated from high school a few years ago. If our school had a bus, would you walk or take the bus?" Hao Suyang smiled awkwardly. I'd probably take the bus, I guess." As soon as he said that, Professor Wang Chengfang shot him a sharp glare, instantly making Hao Suyang feel like he was right back at the hyper-strict Hengai High. He immediately changed his tune. "Well, it's actually like this. High school studies are so intense, and students already don't get nearly enough time to exercise. So, walking or running is definitely the better choice." A victorious smirk instantly appeared on Professor Wang Chengfang's face. "Did you see that, Professor Liu? Now that is what a student actually thinks. Your academic theories are clearly lacking." The live chat instantly blew up in outrage. Who wouldn't take a bus if there's one right there? Is he stupid? The IQ on this top scholar is somehow lower than my 3-year-old husky. Even my dog rides in the car when we go grocery shopping. So this is the so-called genius from Hengai High? One glare from a teacher and he completely flips his answer. Way too real. Seeing this stark contrast, the vast majority of the viewers had already started questioning the educational approach of the Hengai model. Professor Liu looked at the chat and nodded in satisfaction. Looks like most people still understand the pros and cons here. Meanwhile, I also received a system notification. Ding! System recognition successful. Public area safety renovations have been completed. Reward funds, 2 million. At this moment, after the students had settled in for their morning reading, I headed back to my office. There was still so much I needed to get done. But I only had one goal in mind, and that was to run this school the best I could. Just as I closed my eyes to rest, Director May walked in, bringing over a dozen teachers with him. They handed over the student feedback forms from each class. The vast majority were expressing deep gratitude for the free tuition, room, and board. But Director May looked incredibly troubled. A month ago, when I first arrived at this school, I made the sudden decision to waive all student fees. Because of that, the school's budget was now running at a massive loss. Most of the construction funds were coming straight out of my own pocket. Director May was a good teacher, and worried that I was struggling financially, he spoke up on his own. "Principal Guan, I've been a teacher for 30 years, and I've saved up enough for my retirement. If the school's budget is tight, just skip paying my salary." Right after that, the dozen or so young teachers behind him also chimed in. "Principal Guan, you can withhold my salary too. I really don't need to make that much. You're a good man, Principal Guan. As long as we can make Laofeng High a success, that's all that matters to us. We came here to support the education in our hometown anyway." I couldn't help but smile helplessly at their earnestness. "You guys really don't need to worry about that. The school's accounts aren't short on money at all. In fact, not only are we not short on money, I'm actually going to give you all a raise. Starting this month, the base salary for all teachers will be bumped up to 10,000. Homeroom teachers will get an extra 8,000 in monthly subsidies, and department heads will get 5,000. As long as the cafeteria ladies serve generous portions without skimping, they'll get a 3,000 bonus. If they do skimp on the food, they only get 1,000. Stick with me, and I guarantee you'll all be living the good life." Hearing this, Director May's eyes widened in utter shock. Calculating his new monthly salary, it would actually reach over 20,000. He thought I was dumping my entire life savings into Laofeng High. He instantly panicked. Principal Guan, no, you can't do this. He's right, Principal Guan. We can't just stand by and watch you shoulder all the costs yourself. We didn't come here just to make a quick buck, either. I nodded, feeling truly touched. I'm giving you guys a raise so that you won't have a single worry about making ends meet. That way, you can pour 100% of your energy into the students. Because for them, these next 3 years are the most important years of their lives. Everything we do is for the students. We have to give them a high school experience with absolutely zero regrets. All the teachers were deeply moved. Their eyes gleamed with raw emotion as they each voiced their unwavering dedication. A few other teachers pulled their prison uniforms tighter around themselves, looking full of pride. I waved my hand and told them to get back to work. Because I had already booked a renovation team, ready to completely remodel the student dormitories. Laofeng High School has nearly a century of history. In the past, every dorm room was an 8-person room with bunk beds. It could originally hold 6,000 people, but right now, with the school just opening, we have less than 500 students. This left a massive number of empty dorm rooms. The system's next task for me was a cell security upgrade. It required me to solve the issue of having too few inmates per room, which leads to a highly elevated risk of prison breaks. This matched my own thoughts exactly. Since that was the case, why not just renovate all the dorms into single rooms? That would satisfy the system, and the students could live comfortably. And with the system's buff, all 6 dorm buildings were quickly renovated. Single large beds, private bathrooms. All the materials used were pure green and entirely formaldehyde-free. Our originally abundant school funds were very quickly drained totally dry. Half a day went by, and the students' morning classes were just about to end. Right then, the head of the camera crew came looking for me. He wanted to get permission to go into the student dormitories to film during their lunch break. The exact same request was made over at Hanghai High School. Their crew leader was hesitant to ask, worried about violating the students' privacy. But Principal Cheng just waved his hand dismissively. That is not a problem. To put it bluntly, a student's privacy just means they're hiding their own little secrets, or stashing things they shouldn't have. That brings absolutely nothing but harm to their education. Our students are not allowed to have privacy. We've assigned dedicated dorm supervisors who will conduct random room checks while the students are resting. You guys can follow them and film at any time. Meanwhile, back in the broadcasting studio, Professor Wang Chengfang started holding forth once again. I believe Principal Cheng is doing a fantastic job with this, assigning dorm supervisors for random checks. During the high school years, in order to guarantee the quality of education, it is highly necessary to sacrifice a bit of the students' privacy. The live chat instantly erupted into a massive debate. I totally agree. A lot of bad habits don't just affect the kid themselves. They also drag down their roommates. You just have to be completely strict with these kids. I literally ripped my kid's bedroom door off its hinges, and now he ranks first in his class every single year. This is blatantly trampling on a child's basic human rights. Watch out, or one day your son might go downstairs without using the elevator or the stairs. The broadcast cut back over to Laofeng High School. Facing the crew leader's request, I made my stance crystal clear. Here in this school, the dorm room is the students' home. Since it involves their personal privacy, we teachers have absolutely no right to interfere. You'll have to go talk to the students yourselves. Our school only has single occupancy dorms. The new room assignment plan will be fully rolled out before lunch. Hearing this, the crew leader froze in shock. Single dorms? He had never heard of a single high school that gave kids their own private rooms. The live chat completely exploded. Is this even a high school in our country? How the hell is that just a single dorm room? That is straight up a luxury bachelor pad. Principal Guan is really going all out with the budget. Every single thing Principal Guan says blows my mind. I can't believe they actually have single dorms. He is the only principal out there who treats his students' wishes like absolute gospel. So much respect, but Professor Wang Chengfang immediately furrowed his brow again. This is Principal Guan's biggest failure in running a school. These are all minors, under 18 years old. Their ability to take care of themselves is still highly questionable. If they're all hiding in their dorms playing around at night, how on earth can you guarantee the quality of their education? Professor Lu couldn't stand listening to him anymore. Your students are squeezed dry all day long, and at night they still have to suffer under the school's intense surveillance? After 3 whole years of living like that, have you people ever even considered just how much psychological damage you're inflicting on them? Do students suddenly not have human rights? Even pigs in a pen get to sleep without being bothered at night. Are you treating your students worse than livestock? The two professors were endlessly arguing once again. The broadcasting studio had no choice but to contact the program director at Laofang Middle School, asking them to get my thoughts. The director passed on the message, Principal Guan. We got word from the station. Out of the 3 schools, you are the only principal who actually values students' privacy. This has sparked a massive debate in both the studio and the live stream. A lot of viewers want to know your reasoning behind this. Without missing a beat, I answered directly. My reasoning is very simple. It is because students are human beings. They have every right to their own privacy. And to those parents who disagree with me, I just want to say one thing. If you do not treat your children like human beings right now, they will never grow up to be real human beings in the future. We all know that animals in the wild do not feel the need to wear clothes to cover up, nor do they feel ashamed of their own bodies. Therefore, without a sense of privacy, one cannot feel honor or shame, and naturally will not know right from wrong. How can we even talk about what it means to be human? This kind of education is not nurturing students. It is destroying them. These words instantly sent absolute shockwaves across the board. The chat completely blew up. I admit, my previous thoughts were a bit extreme. I thought Principal Guan was just putting on a show to be edgy, but I did not expect him to actually have real educational values. I am genuinely impressed. If only we had more educators like him. Back in the studio, Professor Wang Chengfang was still fighting back. Professor Liu, you claim the Heng Hai model negatively impacts students. But Hao Suyang here, a top scholar who came straight out of Heng Hai, is still at the very top of his class at Qingbai University. Is this the negative impact you are talking about? Professor Liu was not angry at all. Instead, he looked right at Hao Suyang. Hao, let me ask you, do you honestly feel like you have your own independent thoughts? Hao Suyang froze for a second, then immediately snapped back, of course I have my own thoughts. But Professor Liu raised a hand and cut him off. Hold on, do not rush to argue. This show has been running for a while now, and I have been watching you all day. I noticed that every single time before you speak, you always check Professor Wang's reaction first. Have you not realized that yourself? Professor Wang used to be your teacher. We all heard the intro when the show started, but 3 years of high school have passed, and yet you are still terrified of him. You still cannot interact with him as an equal. It just goes to show how much damage he has done to you. Listening to Professor Liu's words, Hao Suyang started to reflect inwardly. The more he thought about it, the more horrified he became. He had completely failed to notice his own subconscious behavior. Just then, my speech played on the studio's big screen. If you do not treat your children like human beings right now, they will never grow up to be real human beings in the future. These words echoed deeply in the ears of the 3 guests. Professor Wang Chengfang smirked dismissively, turning a completely deaf ear, while Hao Suyang just stood there frozen, his face full of mixed emotions. Professor Liu could not help but laugh. Well said, absolutely brilliant. This is a living, breathing example right here. Hao, you've heard what Principal Guan just said. Honestly speaking, throughout your entire high school years, did any teacher ever truly treat you like a human being? Do you honestly think you are an adult with independent thoughts right now? The moment those words dropped, Hao Suyang's mind went completely blank, and a spiral of self-doubt began. Am I really an independent person? Subconsciously, he glanced at Professor Wang Chengfang's face once again. The split second he made that move, it was as if everything suddenly clicked for him, and he was completely at a loss for words. Meanwhile, completely oblivious to the drama unfolding in the studio, after the interview wrapped up, I needed to hold a brief homeroom teachers meeting. Even though I usually absolutely hate big meetings every 3 days, small ones every 2, but the school is still just in its prep phase right now. So we only meet when it's absolutely necessary. And today's meeting is all about putting my newest ideas into action. Meanwhile, the students across all 3 schools have wrapped up their morning classes and are heading into their very first lunch break. Hengai High's cafeteria has that classic Hengai vibe. The kids are lined up in perfect, uniform rows, balancing a lunch tray in one hand and holding a textbook to memorize from in the other. A massive banner hangs on the cafeteria wall. Read in line, leave no time behind. Lunchtime lasts a mere 10 minutes. And guys and girls alike are just wolfing down their food, and the second they're done, the kids scramble madly back to their dorms. Because if they aren't in bed by the exact cutoff time, they'll face harsh punishments, or even get suspended. Once the camera crew got the green light, they set up their gear in the dorms bright and early. In less than 5 minutes, the students who just finished eating are already completely flat on their beds. Out in the hallways, the dorm supervisors are patrolling back and forth. They're not just making sure the kids are asleep, even a quick trip to the bathroom gets you interrogated. Back in the studio, our guests have finished their lunch, and everyone's looking a bit drowsy. But Professor Wang Chengfang, still full of energy. I'm sure the audience can see it clearly. Hengai High is all about the little details. They don't let their students waste a single second. Kids raised in this kind of environment naturally develop the habit of fighting for every second to study. Now that is true education. A habit like that will serve them for the rest of their lives. This time, Professor Lu didn't just argue back. Instead, he looked over at Hao Suyang with a caring expression. "Hao, my boy, before lunch, you mentioned your stomach was hurting a bit. Are you feeling any better now?" That one simple question exposed the absolute biggest flaw of the Hengai model. Hao Suyang looked incredibly awkward. He gave a sheepish little smile to say thanks. Professor Wang tried to jump in and argue, but the host cut him right off. Well, I'm sure our viewers at home have gotten a pretty solid grasp on Hengai High. So, up next, let's check out how the other schools handle their lunch breaks. The camera quickly cuts to Moen High. Students are just slouching around the dorm hallways. Every now and then, some kid jumps up to smack the ceiling. The camera crew pushes open a dorm room door to reveal a massive room built for 40 kids. Instantly, a totally foul stench hits them right in the face. Seeing this, the live chat absolutely lost its mind. How is this a student dorm? It's literally an armory. I honestly wouldn't be shocked if they found a machine gun in there. LMAO. Being a teacher here is practically a massive health hazard. Back in the studio, Professor Wang chimed in with some background on Moen High. Moen High is the most infamous youth behavioral reform center in the entire city. Once parents realize their kids are going off the rails, they'll pay whatever it takes to dump them here. Because of that, these kids need absolute, iron-fisted discipline. Over time, they'll slowly learn to follow the rules and become useful members of society. As he spoke, he shot a provocative glare over at Professor Lu, waiting to see how he'd argue back. But without missing a beat, Professor Lu calmly replied, "The fact that these kids develop these kinds of personalities, that mostly stems from their families. I firmly believe there aren't that many people born inherently bad. Their obsession with weapons just proves how profoundly unsafe they feel inside. Kids like this desperately need understanding and respect. I have no doubt that under Principal Guan's guidance, these kids would change for the better." The moment Professor Lu finished speaking, the broadcast immediately cut to Laofeng High. The bus slowly pulled up to the dormitory building. The students, having just enjoyed a hearty meal, safely stepped off. The once old and rundown dormitory was now completely brand new. The homeroom teacher led a class of boys to assign their dorm rooms. After chatting with one of the students, the film crew got permission to shoot inside his room. This student, number 9527, had just turned 18. While most kids his age were already off to college, he was only just getting the chance to start high school this year. His parents passed away when he was young, so he and his grandma had only each other to rely on growing up. Unable to bear seeing his grandma hunched over in the fields every day, he had decided to drop out early and find work to support them. But his grandma's lifelong dream was for him to make it to college. It wasn't until news broke that Laofeng High School was offering completely free tuition, room, and board that he finally went back to school. Because of this, he treasured this hard-won opportunity more than anything. Facing the film crew's interview, 9527 gave a slightly awkward smile. "Since it's a free dorm, I don't really have any high expectations. No matter what the conditions are like, I'm just so grateful to Principal Guan for giving me the chance to go to school." But when the film crew followed him inside, everyone was absolutely completely stunned. While 9527 was still standing there in a daze, his homeroom teacher slipped a card into his hand. "Here's your room card. Keep it safe, don't lose it. Getting a replacement is a real pain." 9527 looked at his teacher in absolute disbelief. "Wait, are there no other students in here? There's only one bed. Is this my own private room?" His teacher gave a warm smile. "That's right, this is your room for the next 3 years. Your luggage has already been brought inside for you. All the other students are getting the exact same treatment." Hearing this, the boys behind him burst into pure excitement. When 9527 stepped out of the room, the door closed automatically. He looked down at his room card, then back up at the door, which had no keyhole. Just as he was about to ask his teacher about it, he saw that the teacher had already led the other students down the hall to their rooms. He hesitated, wondering if he should run after him and bother him, when suddenly, a large hand gently grabbed his wrist. The person guided his hand, pressing the room card against the door. "Just tap your card right here, and the door will open." Following a soft beep, the door clicked open instantly. 9527 hurriedly turned around to say thanks, but was shocked to see that the man standing before him, wearing a prison uniform, was actually Principal Guan. He immediately stiffened up in nervousness and introduced himself. "Hello, Principal Guan. I am 9527. And, this is my room." He smiled and gave his shoulder a friendly pat. "A pleasure to meet you. I live right next door. Looks like we're neighbors from now on. Let's look out for each other." After saying that, he casually strolled into his own room next door. This entire interaction was caught on camera by the film crew. Instantly, live comments flooded the screen like a tidal wave. Principal Guan really keeps his word. Not only did he arrange private rooms for everyone, he's actually living in the dorms with the students. He truly believes in equality for all. Nobody can hate on him now, right? Meanwhile, back in the broadcasting studio, even Professor Wang Chengfeng's jaw dropped wide open. But the biggest shock was yet to come. Inside every single student's room was a fully equipped AI smart device. 9527 was just getting ready to hop into bed when he suddenly heard a robotic voice. "Hello, 9527. I am your smart voice assistant, black and white. Please say something, so I can register your voice print." The sudden voice made 9527 jump out of his skin. "Whoa, what the heck is this thing? Voice print successfully registered. I am happy to be at your service. You can call my name at any time while inside your room, and I will assist you." 9527 swallowed hard, asking nervously, So, what exactly can you do?" The voice assistant replied instantly. "You can use me to set alarms, open or close windows and curtains, as well as control all the appliances in the room. You can also call the dorm manager, medical staff, and so on. In addition, I am equipped with a behavior detection system, which will monitor your daily behavioral data to assess your psychological state and physical health, and notify the dorm manager if necessary. But please, rest assured, all data is analyzed locally and will never be uploaded. Furthermore, absolutely no one will see the raw data. On behalf of Principal Guan, I guarantee your absolute privacy." These words didn't just leave 9527 completely dumbfounded. Even the film crew nearby was stunned. The comments in the livestream had already exploded. "Are you kidding me? Single rooms in a high school dorm are crazy enough. But it even has an AI voice assistant? Now I just feel like a total country bumpkin." Principal Guan really spared no expense. This setup is even better than a college dorm. In the studio, Professor Lu laughed. The future of the education sector truly belongs to the youth. Principal Guan's ideas are so far ahead of their time. But Professor Wang Chengfeng voiced his opposition once again. "How can we let immature technology like artificial intelligence interfere with something as important as education? Analyzing student behavior inherently requires a tremendous amount of time and effort from our teachers. I refuse to believe that some little AI can guarantee students won't cause trouble in their dorms." Professor Lu shook his head. He just placed a smart answering machine in the dorm, that's all. You're getting all worked up over it. Faced with this kind of groundbreaking innovation, should I call you blind, or just a stubborn old fossil? Professor Wang Chengfeng instantly lost his temper, his voice rising a few pitches. "Professor Lu, you've gone way too far. This is high school education, it dictates the very future of these students. How can we allow him to just mess around like this? My judgment is absolutely correct. Principal Guan is nothing but an amateur. He doesn't even realize that if this reckless experiment of his goes wrong, it will ruin these students' entire lives." Soon, the dormitories of all 3 schools fell silent. To avoid disturbing the students' rest, the film crew wrapped up their shooting for the time being. Taking advantage of the lunch break, I watched the show's broadcast for a bit, and naturally, I heard what Professor Wong had to say. But I'm not afraid of this kind of skepticism at all. I have no personal issue with the man. It's just that his rotting, outdated educational philosophy really belongs in the trash bin of history. However, the show's popularity had definitely exceeded expectations. Concurrent viewers in the livestream had already surpassed 3 million, absolutely crushing it at the top of every major platform's trending list. Ranking second was a top-tier streamer, who was also co-streaming this educational reality show, with over 1 million viewers of his own. I clicked into his livestream, only to see him holding a massive bowl, waving his chopsticks at the screen and saying, "Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't think this show would be that good at first. I thought it was just some documentary promoting Hanghai Middle School. But Principal Guan's Lao Fang Middle School? The entertainment value is just insane. It's literally clashing with the Hanghai model at every single turn. This is way too much fun. Plus, we get to watch 2 professors flaming each other. I am totally here for it." He paused for a moment before continuing, "Look, I only got a middle school education. I'm purely just a lucky pig riding the live streaming wave. I don't have any profound thoughts. But it feels like both sides actually make some sense here." These words resonated with the live chat. For real, it's just a total clash of ideas and principles. We don't get all that deep stuff. We just want to see what wild new tricks Principal Guan can pull out of his sleeve. Streamer, since you're such a big fan of Principal Guan, and you don't even have a high school diploma, why don't you go enroll in Laofang Middle School and stream it for us? Haha, this comment is hilarious. I just wonder if Principal Guan would even accept a total slacker like me. Streamer hit the nail on the head. To be fair, not many people usually care about the day-to-day routine of high school education. Even I have to admit, it was me who cranked up the drama for this show. Right as I was lost in thought, a sudden knock on my dorm door snapped me out of it. It was Director May. The system's next-to-do task was flashing insufficient patrol warnings in the cell blocks. So, I asked Director May to help me recruit some new patrol staff for the school. Since most of the heavy-hitter teachers had already been poached by the big cities, I set my sights on retired master teachers. Sure, they might not have the stamina for a grueling teaching schedule anymore, but I only needed them to act as, well, dorm wardens. No actual teaching required, and man, Director May really delivered. Most of the retired veteran teachers agreed to help out. A lot of them had tuned into the morning broadcast, and were genuinely moved when I waived the students' tuition, room, and board. They wanted to do their part for the local kids, too. But Director May stood there, frowning deeply. Principal Guan, my mother also wants to take this chance to make herself useful again. I gave a slight, knowing smile. Well, isn't that a good thing? Why the long face? Director May sighed, even though everyone supports the core mission of our private school. A lot of these veteran teachers feel that our educational philosophy doesn't quite align with their traditional views. When my mom heard she could help out, she was thrilled, but she also explicitly told me to give you some advice on how we run things. She wants you to play it safe. You know, my old lady used to be your homeroom teacher back in the day. You know how incredibly stubborn she can be. I took a trip down memory lane, and the image of that fierce, no-nonsense old lady popped into my head. She was a provincial-level master teacher, and my homeroom teacher for all 3 years of high school. Lord knows she made me copy texts as punishment more times than I can count. Once she sets her mind on something, wild horses couldn't drag her away from it. Getting her to buy into my radical methods? Mere words definitely weren't going to cut it, but honestly, I was still pretty confident. Don't worry about it, I reassured him. These veteran teachers aren't completely stuck in their ways. Once they actually see what we're building here on the ground, I guarantee they'll become the backbone of our teaching staff. They'll come around to our vision. Let's get them stationed tonight. I only need them to keep an eye on the evening self-study sessions. Let's make sure not to overwork the elderly folks. Our evening study block is 3 hours. We'll pay them an extra 200 yuan an hour. We absolutely cannot shortchange these senior educators. Just as Director May nodded and turned to leave, another knock came at the door, and a few teachers walked in. Leading the pack was a freshman homeroom teacher. She gave a slightly sheepish smile. Principal Guan, I noticed we still have quite a few empty dorm rooms. Since we're all just renting places off campus anyway, Is there any way we could move into the dorms too, just like you? I shook my head, chuckling. You kids don't need to rough it out here. At your age, you've got your own families to take care of. But the teachers immediately frowned in protest. Roughing it? Principal, what are you talking about? The school dorms are way nicer than the crappy apartments we're renting. Plus, if we live right here on campus, it'll be a lot easier to bond with the students, wouldn't it? The teacher scratched the back of her head as she spoke, clearly feeling a little awkward. Hearing that, I just laughed and waved them off. Alright, you win. Just go register with Director May, and bring your stuff over whenever you have the time. Right then, the teacher looked incredibly guilty and started apologizing. Principal Guan, I was watching the livestream replay today, and I noticed that student 9527 had no idea how to use his keycard. But I had already walked off. I really dropped the ball on that little detail, and I am so sorry. Thinking about it now, if these kids run into any practical issues with their daily lives, since we teachers live right here on campus, we can always lend a hand. The surrounding teachers all nodded in agreement. I knew my philosophy had finally resonated, at least with these younger educators. They were finally starting to empathize with the students. But that also brought up a hidden risk. I spoke up immediately. In that case, Director May, why don't you set the example? Hearing this, Director May looked torn, even though he completely agreed with my vision. Living in the dorms would probably cause some massive arguments back home. But on second thought, Principal Guan even sold his own house to fund the school. It's way too selfish of me to worry about this, he thought. For the sake of the kids, I'll just have to deal with the family drama. Before I could say another word, he agreed on the spot. Alright then, I'll move in tomorrow, but I suddenly changed my tune. No, you absolutely cannot move in here. When I said set an example, I meant setting an example for the teachers who have families. You need to maintain high teaching standards, yes, but you also have to balance your own quality of life. Both are equally important. You don't need to feel guilty about it. Director May was deeply moved and nodded vigorously. I understand, Principal Guan. His respect for me grew even deeper. Not only does he care about the students, but he actually looks out for the teachers' well-being too. Now that's a true leader. I had zero interest in hearing their praises. I just waved my hand and shooed them all out. Soon after, the system panel popped up with a notification. System recognition successful. Interior security upgrades completed. Reward: 2 million in prison renovation funds. Bonus reward: repentance link. The system can now bypass all distance restrictions and remotely connect to any camera or monitor within the prison. System shop unlocked. With just a thought, a tablet-like device materialized right in my hands. The original purpose of this repentance terminal was to let inmates connect with their victims on the outside. It allowed them to apologize across any distance. Plus, it came with a cognitive filter during use, so no one would ever suspect the system's existence. But hey, my students aren't inmates. What do they need to repent for? I took another look at the system shop. There was only one lonely item listed: the repentance terminal. The price was only 100 funds. Suddenly, a brilliant idea flashed through my mind. I could absolutely buy a batch and give them to the students' parents. You have to understand, these kids don't even have smartphones. Hardly any of them even have basic flip phones. Most come from families that have been farming for generations, and a lot of them are left behind children. So many of my students have zero ways to easily contact their families. These kids left their hometowns to study here in the county. Of course they're going to get homesick. When they're feeling down and carrying all that emotional baggage, it's obviously going to affect their studies. As their principal, it's my job to fix this. With these repentance terminals, I can hook up every single dorm's AI assistant straight into them. That way, the students get regular video calls with their parents. Hearing their voices over the phone is one thing, but actually seeing their families' faces and catching every little smile? That's on a whole other level. Pumping with excitement, I rushed straight back to my office. I spent $50,000 to buy 500 repentance terminals. After pulling up all the parents' addresses, I immediately called up a courier service to ship them out. By the time I finished, it was already pushing 2 o'clock. But then another problem hit me. Not everyone out there is going to understand my educational methods. It's bound to stir up a ton of controversy down the line. But what I really want is for everyone to embrace my teaching philosophy. So, I went right ahead and registered an official account for Laofeng Middle School. Since the school was getting so much hype right now, We even had a dedicated representative handle our verification. It took less than 15 minutes to get it sorted. Almost instantly, countless netizens flooded my profile page. My follower count and direct messages absolutely exploded. While most people supported my vision, there were plenty of haters cursing me out, saying I was ruining the kids and deserved the absolute worst. The one that left the deepest impression on me was a truly heartfelt message from a parent. It was a passionate letter, over 1,000 words long. It made me realize I not only have to make Laofeng Middle School a success, but also spread my educational model nationwide. Next up, I started analyzing our next renovation target: revamping the dining system. The system flagged that the inmates in this prison have to leave their cells for every meal. This poses a massive security risk, not to mention the food supply isn't exactly safe or sanitary. It's a breeding ground for health issues. The current cafeteria system was actually set up by the original owner of this body, right before I crossed over. They outsourced it to a contractor who's still on probation. Looks like revamping this area is going to take some serious planning.